Hello, everyone, guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. It's day 3 of the World Championship title match between current world champion Ding Lijian and young, talented player from India, Gukesh Maraju. November 27th was third game of their match played today. And as always, I'm going to analyze the game and share some of my thoughts about what happened there. But once again, before we jump to the game, real quick information about my friends from Chessify platform. They sponsored this episode, and using Chessify platform, you can use a wide range of strong engines, different sort of databases, and many useful materials for grandmaster level players and club level players. If you want to reach new heights in your chess development, check it out. With promo code MESHKOVS20, you can get 20% discount for the first purchase, and check it out in the description. You can find the link. So today was an important moment because on day 3 they had a final game before the first break in the match, and Gukesh was behind the world champion by a point, so it was an important game for him as he played with white, and it would be critical for him to score his first victory in the world championship match. And this time he plays with a queen pawn d2 to d4, changing his mind, because in the first game he played e4, so he lost in game 1 in a French defense, so he tries some new ways. And world champion plays knight f6, knight f3, d5, c4, and e6. So this was the beginning of the game, and many options are possible here. The most popular are g3 with a Catalan type of structure. That's what I like to play and used to play for the long time. Knight c3 is another huge theoretical discussion, and of course other moves also are possible, like e3 or bishop g5. But guess what? Young challenger decides to take on d5 first, which is playable move, but not one of the very popular one. And after ed5, white plays knight c3. And the game leads to a Carlsbad type of structure, sort of Queen's Gambit declined. And I assume the point of this move is, of this move order, is to prevent unnecessary complications after move knight c3. You have to deal with many replies from the black's perspective. Black can capture, can play Semislav, pushing c-pawn one move further. Black can play c5. Also, Rogozin is one of the very solid approaches for black, which is hard to punish. And for that reason, Gukesh clarifies the pawn structure from the very early stage of the opening, and after ed5 he plays knight c3. So world champion plays c6 at this point, and we get this Carlsbad type of battle where black has a very solid strategic setup, and it's very hard to break through. And pretty much as soon as pawn structure is solidified, usually light square bishop tries to land on f5, fighting for the b1 h7 diagonal. For this reason, Gukesh plays queen c2 and takes f5 square under control. However, black plays g6 and tries to play bishop f5 once again. So at this point, it's pretty much impossible to stop bishop f5, and Gukesh plays h3. Such a very calm move, and it seems that what's the point, because black surely plays bishop f5. That's what world champion did, and Gukesh plays queen b3, attacking the pawn on b7. Ding Lejeune replies with queen b6, also a very common approach in this type of structures. And Gukesh blitzes out move g4. So this was the first critical moment where Ding had to think a little bit longer, and he invested about 15 minutes to make his decisions. Basically, at this point of early middle game, or still most likely opening phase of the game, all the moves I've noted with arrows are possible. So queen b3 is perfectly fine move. Bishop e6 is a very solid approach. Bishop e4 also is somewhat playable. And yeah, that was pretty much something to think about for the world champion. After 15 minutes of thought, Ding decided to capture on b3, and after ab, he went for bishop c2, attacking the pawn. So a very, very principled way of fighting in this game. So he destroys the pawn structure on the queen side, and immediately attacks the vulnerable b3 pawn. However, let's have a look on the alternatives. So after this move g4, it's not something completely new, and I've checked in my database, and a couple of high-level games were played in this line previously. So, for instance, last year, a couple of games happened after bishop e6, a very I would say the most solid approach from black's perspective, because you're not trying to enter some unknown field and just make a very stable decision. So in this case, for instance, bishop g2 was played in the game between former world champion Vladimir Kramnik and Jan Nepomniachtchi last year in Amsterdam, and the game went as following: g5, short castle, and then white played e4. So this is something to play for in this type of a structure, because otherwise, if you're not pushing in the center, then what you're playing for, yeah? And yeah, in the later phase of the game, they traded, and then the center became open, so white got some activity and started to attack the b7 pawn, and after trades, knight d5. Still, it's I would say that it's a very complicated three-game result with double-edged position. At the moment, it should be slightly more favorable for white because of the bishop pair and also some space. But as we know, space could be a huge advantage, and it could become a serious problem, strategic problem. So, for instance, this game was lost by Kramnik. However, yeah, this opening idea was examined already last year. Alternatively to bishop g2, also bishop f4 was played in another high-level game. So in this game, black stick with the same plan and played h5, g5. And here, white decided to be a little bit more stable in the beginning. However, in the later stage of the game, when white pretty much finished their their development, still they played e4 and opted for a similar type of fight. And the game was played between Yevahishvili and Asaubayeva this year in Tbilisi. So we know that, this is not something completely new, and the moment when Gukesh played g4, we can say for sure that this idea was prepared, at least for Gukesh, and world champion also most likely knew something about it. So after queen b3, ab, and bishop c2, targeting the b3 pawn, it's a very brave decision and responsible decision from Black's perspective. However, if White is imprecise, then it could easily get worse for White, because they have damaged pawn structure on the queen side. And so here Gukesh pretty quickly plays bishop f4, h5. We already have seen this approach, this pawn expansion on the king's side is something to play for Black. And however, in this case, White did not play g5 and instead played rook g1. So the point of this rook g1 move is that you're keeping attention, and you want to support the pawn on g4, because this pawn plays an important role, as it takes f5 square away from the light square bishop. And if light square bishop can't escape, then it could become very tricky. And hg, hg happened in the game. So this was another critical moment, because Ding spent significant amount of time at this point of the game to make his next decision. I'm pretty sure that he was still in the book, and not sure that he checked this before the game, most likely not, but I'm pretty sure that he knew, he have seen this position earlier, and he sort of tried to recall some details and maybe calculated some lines, and try to have a deeper immersion into position. And one thing I noticed in general in this match, that both players, they tend to have some issues with time management. And we have seen that in game 1 and game 2, where both sides struggle to play quickly at some point, because pressure is real, and it's very understandable. But we can say for sure that at some point, because of this significant long thought, for both sides, at some point it's not enough time in the time scramble. So after 33 minutes, Ding decided to play knight bd7. However, there was another game which was played last year between Vladimir Kramnik and Arjun Erigaisi. They played in World Team Championship in Düsseldorf in 2023, and Arjun captured on b3, but most likely it was unprecise move, because in this case bishop becomes an easy target, and the only way not to lose any material is to go bishop c4. But in this case, White can eliminate the bishop and immediately attack the c4 pawn, which is very vulnerable there and has no defense. So the game went as follows: bishop b4, bishop takes c4, b5, bishop b3, and a5. And even though position is, still very dynamic and everything can happen, and eventually the game between Kramnik and Erigaisi finished in a draw. But Kramnik had a significant advantage in this game, and also here, because of the bishop pair and open position, white is quite a bit better. So let's go back to the game, and instead of that, Ding decided to keep this pawn for later stage of the game, and decided to work on his development. And the backside, the problem with knight bd7 is that white can simply protect the pawn, and it turns out that right now, after knight d2, it's not so easy anymore to protect against rook c1 threat, because if white manages to play rook c1, then it's just a free bishop. And world champion tries to find a way how to solve this problem with a sneaky move, rook g8. So the point is that rook c1 still is a threat, but it could be met with g5, and then either bishop is able to run away right in time, either we have some traits, and okay, then we have a balanced position and black has nothing to worry about. So after rook g8, Gukesh plays g5, and after knight h5 he retreats back with the bishop. So now rook c1 is not such a big threat, because, you know, bishop always can land on f5 and then back to e6 if it's necessary, so it should be pretty balanced. World champion plays rook h8, a very reasonable move, because rook has nothing to do more on g8, and now there's a target on the h file, and Gukesh plays f3. f3 was a nice move, because now maybe in some case white again wants to play e4 and trap the bishop. So black plays knight g7, relocates the knight to a better square, you know, and we know that knight on a rim is a grim, and most likely knight wants to jump either on f5 or e6, and at the same time black attacks the bishop on h2. So Gukesh sidesteps with the bishop, and yeah, this was a shocking moment for all the spectators and commentators, and I assume also some players as well, because I assume Ding still had quite a time here, and he played his move relatively quickly. So he plays rook h5, underestimating that the bishop on c2 could become a serious issue, because it could be trapped. Instead, he had to go for bishop e7 with the idea to attack on g5 with the bishop, and then bishop can take on d2, and light square bishop can escape from c2. So this detail was missed by current world champion, and instead he went for rook h5. So here it was the very, very critical moment for challenger, because he got a really, really good chance to fight for the advantage, and he took quite a while to make his decision, but finally he plays e4, and when I followed the game, you could easily say by the body language that Ding was very, very disappointed, and he was not feeling well at this point, because, you know, he understood that he is in trouble. And what is even more annoying about this situation is that he was down to half an hour. You can say that, come on, half an hour is still a lot of time. Yes, but if you need to solve a lot of problems having only 30 minutes on the clock and you have to make 20 decisions in that time, it becomes a real challenge, believe me. So after e4, Ding makes another inaccuracy by capturing on e4. It was more precise to go knight e6 immediately, keeping this tension in the center. In some lines, it could become very useful. Still, black would be under serious pressure, but they would have a little bit better chances. So after they trade on e4, knight e6 still was played. And this was another, pretty much, it was a test for Gukesh, how technical he is. And he spent another 12 minutes. So I already criticized a bit their time usage in this match, but here we have to give a credit to young challenger that indeed he did everything right, and you could say by the body language that he handled a pressure much better than in the previous two games, especially in compared to game 1. So after 12 minutes he made a very, very precise and the only move which led to an advantage. He plays rook c1. Not a very difficult move, but just to compare, if he would play, for instance, move bishop f2 with similar idea, supporting the pawn and preparing this rook c1, rook c2 idea. But this would be way slower, and black eventually would have a chance to get his counterplay. So you see that I marked the f4 square with that it's not anymore guarded by the bishop, and this is the biggest drawback of bishop f2 move. So in this case, black can jump to f4, already eyeing on put some piece on d3. And for instance, after rook g3, the same problem appears here. So it's a very dynamic play, move by move, and even though you're controlling the d3 square, but now h1 square is not anymore guarded, and black can play rook h1, pinning the bishop, and once again eyeing for some bishop d3 or knight d3. So this would be completely fine option for black, and rook c1 was on the board, so it meant that pretty much Ding has no choice, and he sort of has to go for knight d4. For instance, bishop g7 is completely inhuman because, okay, even though you can make such a move, but you're just giving a piece, okay, of course you can get back a couple of pawns, but then position simply becomes technical. So Ding was in a very tough spot at this moment. He plays knight takes d4, and then white plays bishop f2. So now we can see that both minor pieces are under the attack, and this construction in the center is very shaky. So pretty much no matter what black is doing, they're suffering quite a lot. And after bishop f2, a couple of options were possible for Ding here, although I'll remind that he was under quite a serious time pressure as well, and he did not had additional half an hour or 1 hour to think about details. It's a situation where pretty much you have to make some move, and you're not yet in a free fall, but you're under very serious pressure indeed. So he plays bishop g7. Maybe bishop c5 would be an option as well, but then it leads to a similar type of issues where most likely white plays knight a4, for instance, just as illustration. Maybe knight takes b3, takes, and well, all in all, it's just one extra piece for a couple of pawns, but it should be a technical position for white. So Ding plays bishop g7. He's sort of trying to keep this construction in the center somewhat alive. And yet again, it was far from easy way of conversion for white, because at this point of the game, there was only one move which led to a clear advantage, and it was so easy to spoil the advantage. For instance, direct bishop takes d4 simply is not working for white, because black recaptures, and it seems that, okay, come on, black just has the same issue with the light square bishop, and you can say that, well, I'm winning a piece, so there's nothing to do. However, here it's a little bit more tricky, because indeed black loses a piece, but after knight takes b3, you can play bishop e3 with a double attack, and most likely rook goes somewhere to a1 or d1, no matter where. Bishop takes g5, and it's very tricky, because now black has 3 pawns for the minor piece, and well, I would even say that it's anyone's game. It feels very unclear to me, because 3 pawns is simply enough for the compensation. So for that reason, after bishop g7, bishop takes d4 did not work properly. For instance, another slow move like rook g3 would not work as well, because in this case you're preparing to take on d4 and then collect the bishop. But here black can do almost the same thing. They can take on b3, and after taking, retreat with the bishop to e5, so harassing the rook on g3. Most likely you have to go to g4 in order to keep control over the g5 square, g5 pawn, and the f4 square. But then bishop goes back to c7, and many unstoppable threats are in the air. Like the main one is knight e5 followed by knight f3. Rook g5 is in the air. Also, maybe bishop d8 at some point could become very strong move. So here it would be still very, very unclear where the game goes. So finally, after bishop g7, you see that a couple of moves, a couple of options were possible for white. And yet again, the only move for white guaranteed an advantage. And Gukesh managed to find it. And the move is somewhat counterintuitive. It's surely not easy to find such a move, because the move when you go back with a piece always is such a challenge. I know what I'm speaking about. I've missed a couple of such moves in my career, in my recent games, classical games. It's always tough to spot. And the move that Gukesh played here was knight e2. First of all, it looks scary. It looks strange, because all the white pieces are somewhat back in first 2 ranks, but it has a very concrete idea, because pretty much these 3 pieces works perfectly against this construction, bishop on c2 and knight on d4, and black has nothing to do against it. So no matter how black reacts here, but they're losing some material. And this was probably something that Ding overlooked, taking into account his lack of time at this point. And at this point he was forced to give some material for his opponent, so he captured the pawn on b3 and gave up the bishop. But something that he was playing for here is that white still has to be quite concentrated and precise to be able to convert this advantage. So I'll give you one example. Gukesh played king takes d2, which was a very precise move. But alternatively, rook takes d2 seems like a very natural move, isn't it? However, this already leads to almost balanced position, if we can say so, in such a messy, complicated game. But then, after knight e5, a lot of threats are in the air. And if you try to cover the f3 square with a rook, for instance, then there is a tactical shot, rook takes g5, and after rook g5, knight f3, black collects back the pawn on g5, trades, and once again it's 3 pawns for the bishop. I would say it's a very dynamic, complicated position, and most likely it should be balanced. So after king d2, still Ding played knight e5 with the idea to play knight f3. Knight e4 was played to cover that square. Rook d8 was another try, desperate try, we can say. King e2 was once again very safe choice by young challenger. Rook h2, another tactical trick, attempt to create at least some counterplay, and then Gukesh plays bishop g2, dealing with this pin on the second rank. So Ding pretty much had nothing to do here, and he plays a6, and when white managed to deal with all the threats black generated in recent moves, then we are entering a technical phase of the game where everything what white needs to do is sort of slowly convert and improve their position. But if you look at this position, you know, of course, black is down a piece all in all. However, it's not so easy to break this position, you know. Their knight on e5 is pretty stable. Okay, rooks are somewhat active, and pawns are also pretty stable, so there are no serious strategic issues in the position. But basically, to win such a position, you need to be first of all precise. Secondly, you don't need to rush, and you need to improve your position move by move, slowly, waiting for the right moment to strike. And that's what Gukesh did amazingly, I would say, in this game. So first of all, he plays b3, just useful move to take control over the c4 square, maybe sidestepping from the x-ray of the dark square bishop. And yeah, Ding has absolutely no easy targets, pretty much no targets at all. So he's just playing a waiting game, just making some move. Once again, I remind that he's down to some minutes at this point of the game. And Gukesh slowly but surely improves position of his rook, brings it to d file. Okay, Ding is just waiting. And yeah, finally, when all the preparations were done, white starts harassing enemy pieces and hit it back from active positions. So he starts with bishop g3 move, forcing the rook to go back. And after rook h5, the pawn is under attack, but he plays knight f3. Another very precise and strong move, with the idea to eliminate the blockade piece in the center, because this knight e5 pretty much is on such a perfect position, blockades everything, stops all the both white bishops to shine. But after knight f3 move, there's nothing much to do against it. So knight f3 happened in the game, and once again, even though position is technically winning, but you have to make those small, precise decisions. And Gukesh done it very smoothly. He takes with the king, and this is the most precise move. If you take with the bishop, still it would be winning, but slightly imprecise, because after rook g5, you have to find the sequence of moves. Rook takes d7, rook d1, and king f2. The only move that sort of keeps winning position according to the engine. And I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't be such an easy job to convert this position to the full point compared to the game. So Gukesh takes with the king. Dink plays bishop d4, and white plays rook h1. At this point, Ding was down to only 1 minute, and it was move 35, which means that 5 more moves has to be done. If we're able to calculate a little bit, it means that you have to make 5 moves, 5 decisions in 60 seconds. And yeah, it's very little of time. So in this moment, Ding captures on pawn on g5. It's at this point, position is obviously objectively lost, and Gukesh finishes his job very precisely. He pulls off bishop h3 move, attacking the rook, and it turns out that there are very few options to play here. Dink plays f5, but rook d8 is loses on the spot because of bishop h4, and black loses material. So after bishop h3, black plays f5, but here we can say that the game pretty much finishes after bishop f4, because Ding was down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 second, and finally he's out of time and he has to resign. But no matter if he would even made this move, rook h5, the only move, then the easiest way to finish the game is tactical shot, bishop takes f5, and pretty much lost in this game is unavoidable, and no matter what you do, after gf, you're losing full rook on h5, and that's game over. Or if you try to do something else like rook h1, then I can collect your rook on d7 with a check, and then collect second rook on h1. So this means that after bishop f4, the game was over, and Gukesh, the young challenger, wins his game, levels the score. It was an exceptionally important win for him, because not only that obviously he has to strike back and level the score in the match, but from a psychological point of view, there's nothing better than win before the day off. He managed to use his game with white. Great preparation, great opening idea, great play. As soon as he got his chance, he converted it very smoothly. And to be honest, it seems to me like very good reply, amazing response to Ding's victory in game 1. Because in game 3, Gukesh shown that he's able to fight, he's able to win, and that he is confident, and that he's going to fight in this match in every single game. That's it for today. Tomorrow we have a rest day, and the next game will be played the day after tomorrow. Looking forward to see what happens next. In the next segment, Ding will play 2 games with white and 1 with black. And thank you very much for your attention. See you soon.